Thank you for tuning in to 7 Mobile Minutes, brought to you by 7 Media Group. Now, here are your hosts, Ron Carricker and Dave Morris.
And welcome to another edition, the third edition of 7 Mobile Minutes. I'm Dave Morris. He's Ron Carricker. Ron, what's going on?
Not a lot. Just, enjoying a little bit of the autumn weather, I guess, the rain.
It's November in Oklahoma, yet it was kind of warm and humid out there today.
It's usually that time of the year when we start looking for warm weather spots to get away to. So
that's right, a destination like
travel planning,
like either coast, like Miami or San Francisco. And in fact, that's exactly what we're going to talk about today: is domestic and international travel and how you can use mobile apps and texting when you hit the airports. I hate to keep harping back on this conference in Chicago we were at a couple weeks ago, but there was a speaker from United Airlines at that conference, and he was talking about how they are expanding their apps from not just arrival times, but to really get to where you are. If you're running late, it can tell you geolocation. You're on the highway perhaps, and you're not going to make your flight. Do you want to rebook? Or if you're at the terminal already, here's the nearest Starbucks.
Yeah, and I don't think about some of that stuff when I'm in the airport, but you know as well as I do, when we travel, when you go someplace to a major airport, you go to Atlanta or Chicago or San Francisco or LA. I mean, there's these airports, or Dallas for that matter, close to us. These airports are gigantic. My biggest fear every time I get off a plane to make a connection is, how far is my gate going to be away? So the airport apps are becoming more valuable, especially for those that travel regularly. If I travel once in a while, it's not going to be that critical to me. But if I travel somewhat regularly, 4 or 5 times a year, a layout, and all those things like you mentioned, like he talked about in Chicago, that how far away are you from your gate? There's so much about it because I just don't think about it sometimes. When I get off my plane to connect to another gate, that's all I'm thinking about, and I'm looking all around for the boards and the gates and all that stuff. So, I think that the travel industry in particular is really doing well with trying to get smartphone users much more information and much more engaged with what's going on.
When I was leaving O'Hare from that conference, my phone kept ringing because American kept delaying the flight. And it just reminded me that I always set it up for a text message versus a phone call, because the phone call was an automated 45-second. It took you 30 seconds before they actually said your flight's delayed by 5 minutes. Right. The texting is so valuable, crucial, convenient is the word I'm looking for. The texting is so convenient in that case.
Well, what's funny? I always notice this. When I get into airports, I turn my Wi-Fi off. So I'm really relying on the carrier network. And the reason I turn the Wi-Fi off is because when it tries to connect to that Boingo hotspot and everything, it really slows your phone down because it's trying to connect. And so I turn it off and I rely on my carrier network. And, inside an airport, you're not getting the best reception in the world. So a text message is really valuable, and it's going to be delivered to you. So, there's an important thing to think about when you are in the airport. Now, when you go back to the application part of it, if I can connect to, and obviously like the United situation, they're thinking through, I'm guessing, the aspect of having connectivity that you don't have to pay for. So many airports nowadays are starting to give you Wi-Fi access at no charge. So, that's the thing. I think the text messaging portion, and even when you book online and you set up your seat assignments, everything else, it asks you, do you want to get texted? So you get messaged about your boarding pass, and then you put that in your Apple Wallet, and then you get texted 24 hours ahead of time to check in and so forth and so on. But you're right. Getting a call is the last thing I want. While I'm sitting in the airport, dreading traveling anyway, and you're irritated or you're tired or whatever, don't call me,
Well, and you're surrounded by several hundred of your closest friends as well.
Right. Yeah, you're that guy all of a sudden.
When you're hopping on the airplane, there's actually more people with their cell phone with the boarding pass than the actual paper pass this week.
Yeah.
All right, now speaking of travel and the hundreds of friends that we have at the airports when we travel, domestic travel is one thing when you're trying to make a flight. International travel is something else if you're not sure you're going to make that connecting flight. You shared a article with me this week about San Francisco and international arrivals using mobile technology.
There's an app that's been out there for a little while, and it hasn't quite caught on yet because not a lot of airports are accepting it yet, but it's tied to the U.S. Customs Service, and you can digitally scan in your passport and turn your passport essentially into a digital format, and they're accepting this so that you can get into a fast line through U.S. Customs by using this app showing your passport, and it gets you through quicker. So yeah, like you said, I mean, if you're trying to make a connection, or if you know how customs lines can be, they take forever sometimes. But I'm excited to see if some of the other large international airports are going to pick this up and when, because San Francisco's doing it now. Atlanta, Miami, Houston, those airports, New York. I would expect to see that probably in the coming year that's going to be much more available.
Yeah, Ron's talking about some mobile app called Mobile Passport Control, or MPC. It's available for U.S. citizens with a valid U.S. passport. It'll be interesting. A lot of people who travel a lot pay that $100 or whatever it is to TSA to get that exempt, pre-approval, if you will. So this will be super cool, but you got to think there's a lot of security aspects to that as well. One last thing before we get out of here on the 7 Mobile Minutes this week is Uber, and that's a well-used app. I use it all the time, but the texting that's involved with that app. Yeah,
I mean, that's the go-to app on travel. I mean, if you're in a city, or virtually every major city in the United States, Oklahoma City has a pretty good Uber community. But yeah, I mean, you get picked up and you immediately get a text message that your driver's on the way. So they utilize the app itself, but also the texting portion. You can call your driver, text your driver back. So, I mean, it's just something that the simplicity of it is kind of understated. I mean, it's just so easy to use and easy to do. The mobile commerce behind it is genius. The way you just get out of the car and you don't have to do any credit card transaction. I mean, I guess the worst part about it is getting the shit beat out of you if you're a driver and you got to worry about having a camera, like that happened last week. But good God, it's interesting. You don't hear more about some of that stuff, but as you travel a lot and I travel a lot, we get into strangers' cars all the time.
Right.
So
whether it's an Uber or whether it's a taxi, you're really kind of rolling the dice there. I will say one thing: Uber being a German-sounding word. When we were in Munich, there was no Uber to be found.
There was no Uber, right? Exactly. We expected very well that, hey, Uber, and they would know what we're talking about. They didn't have a clue. There's nothing over there. So, and I don't know if that's just a cultural thing because they do so much more public transportation, and that's not, you don't really see as many cabs really as you do here in the States in large cities. So that may be that may not be a technology deal, more of like a cultural thing. But I don't know. So yeah, I'll keep looking for Uber every time.
After a big boot of beer. All right, Ron, that'll do it. Thanks for the time and the info. 7 Mobile Minutes. We'll be back next week.